Gopi Kalayil is the Chief Evangelist for Brand Marketing at Google, as well as holding a guest faculty position teaching brand marketing at the Stanford University Graduate School of Business. In addition to his corporate, academic posts, he serves on the board of the Desmond Tutu Peace Foundation.
Hello, Misk Global Forum. Salam alaikum, namaste. I want to start off with a small question for all of you. How many organs are there in your body? I want you to think of the answer to that question. How many organs are there in your body? Well, I asked 3 doctor friends of mine, and they were not sure. So I asked my most trusted source, Misk Google, and Misk Google told me there are 78 organs in the human body by popular consensus. So let me introduce you today to the 79th organ in the human body, not created by nature, but created completely by human beings. This little device here. This has become like the 79th organ in our body. Now I know some of you are laughing back at me. So those of you who are holding a mobile device in the hand, pull it out. And let me explain why this has indeed become like a human organ. It has got a skin, you touch it, it responds. It's got eyes, it recognizes faces and objects around you. It's got ears, you talk to it, it understands you. It's got a mouth or a voice, it can talk back to you. And I know that this smartphone of mine seems to be a lot smarter than I am, because it is plugged into all recorded, publicly available human knowledge that's available on the internet. And as a result, you can seem to be able to throw any question and it seems to be able to respond. For example, let me do a quick demo and see if it'll work with the Wi-Fi here. Okay, Google, what is Picasso's full name? Let me see, it'll pick up and recognize it. I think it got it. What does it say?
Pablo Picasso's full name is Pablo Diego José Francisco de Paula Juan Nepomuceno María de los Remedios Cipriano de la Santísima Trinidad Ruiz y Picasso.
Incredible, isn't it? What it's capable of. It remembers all 20 of his names in his Spanish ancestry. But not only that, this seems to have become like a remote control to the physical world. In many parts of the world, I can click it 2 times and a car shows up at my door, or milk or groceries. So I can even control the world like this is my remote control. But more importantly, it seems to have some kind of mind-body consciousness. Otherwise, why else would you sleep with it next to your bedside? How many of you do that? Yeah? More than 70% of you admit to that. And most importantly, as I was walking along the corridor, I saw many of you holding what I consider the 79th organ, lost deeply in prayer. But all jokes apart, things like this have become the most pervasive technology in human history. We have an estimated 7.5 billion human beings on this planet. And as of now, there are an estimated 8 billion mobile connections, devices connected out there. So the first time in human history, we now have a piece of technology that exceeds the number of human beings. What this means is that there are more people who have access to a mobile device than have access to clean drinking water or electricity. This is unprecedented. And this has put us as human beings at a unique point in our evolution. But it's also put us in an interesting dilemma. And that is, in the midst of all of these technologies, there is another technology that I want to talk to you about. That is indeed the most sophisticated, most complex system known to human beings that we get to use every single day, and every human being has access to it, whether it's a tribesman in the Masai Mara or a CEO in Silicon Valley. What do you think I'm talking about? Our brain right here, along with our body, breath, and consciousness. This I consider to be a much more sophisticated and complex technology than anything that humans have created so far. And I call this the inner net. And not only that, even as we get enamored by all of these other technologies that we are building, there is a need to stay connected with this inner technology, the internet as I call it. And the reason being, everything we experience in life is being filtered through this technology. So what do I mean by that? If you had breakfast today, that breakfast is being processed into energy or becoming pieces of your heart, liver, hair, etc. right now. If you're trying to make sense of what the previous panel said, you took all the words and gestures and expressions and intonations and tried to process it and make sense of it. And if I talk to 10 of you, I'll get 10 different explanations of what you heard based on how your inner technology processed it. If I make you listen to a piece of music or show you a piece of art, some of you will be inspired, some of you may get bored, some of you may be indifferent, depending on how your inner technology processes it. So that's one of the most important points I want you to take away from this talk, that your entire life experience is based on how you filter everything that comes in through your inner technology. The second principle I want to leave with you by the end of this talk is that our entire self-expression in our life has to come from what I call this internet. Meaning, whether you write a piece of software or the next great work of fiction, whether you cook an amazing meal or whether you design a beautiful dress, everything that we produce in our world, our self-expression, has to come from somewhere in this technology. Things we make with our hands, the ideas that we come, the messages we deliver. Simple concept, right? And therefore, the quality of our life in any era, particularly in this era, is based on how we maintain the quality of this inner technology. So if this internet is at a state of peak performance, we show up in life and our self-expression turns to be better. And if this inner technology is not a state of peak performance, then the quality of our life deteriorates, the quality of our self-expression, what we are able to create, the impact we have on this world, the success that we experience, all that gets deteriorated. Simple logical concept. But that puts us in a very paradoxical situation in the year 2017. Why? Because all these amazing technologies we're building also call for our attention all the time. And we're endlessly distracted. There's so much information coming to us. Our attention is fragmented. And the rings, pings, and tweets coming at us all the time sometimes overwhelms us. But in complete contrast to that, this inner technology seems to work best when we have our moments of quiet. We are able to take a step back and give some moment of spaciousness to regenerate ourselves. So that is putting us in an interesting dilemma in the age we live in, and it's only going to get worse as we move forward, as both of these parallel needs start colliding. Now, at this point, some of you are looking at me a little suspiciously, thinking, where's this guy going with this? This is Gopi, the Google guy. His day job is making weapons of mass distraction. So what is he talking about? But this is something that I pondered about a lot because due to accidents of culture, on the one hand, growing up, being raised in Indian culture exposed me to a lot of these wisdom traditions. And yet, I chose a professional career. I live and work in Silicon Valley. In some sense of the word, working at Google, I have walked into the lion's den. So the last several years, I've tried to reconcile the two. And what I've concluded is that both have a relevance in our life. All these technologies are amazing, but so is the need to take care of our inner technology. How do you do it? Thankfully, we don't need to figure it out because over the years, cultures have developed a variety of wisdom traditions where human beings have experimented with the mind, body, spirit, with their intellect, everything from nutrition to sleep to contemplative practices. And the guidebook, the operating manual is available to us, and we can draw upon it from different cultures from around the world. But our challenge is to pick pieces of it and incorporate into our life. And which is why we have great respect for one of the traditions in this culture, which is 5 times a day. If you live in this culture, you're encouraged to pause, unplug from everything, and connect to what's going on inside through the power of prayer. And every culture has some variant of this. So what I found out worked best for my life is to actually study some of those wisdom traditions from around the world and incorporate it into my own life in the form of tiny daily rituals. And that seems to, at least in my case, that seemed to give the best result. That gave me some chance of success that I could incorporate this into my life. And I call it occasionally plugging from the internet and plugging into my inner net. So in the remaining few minutes, I want to talk to you about maybe 3 of those rituals that have worked very well for me. First of them is to commit at least 1 minute a day to connect with this inner technology. So think of the fact, how many minutes are there in a day? Interesting question, right? And most people look puzzled. We've never thought about that. There are 1,440 minutes, and this ritual is to take one of those 1,440 minutes and step back and plug into our inner net, using whatever practice or tradition that makes sense to you. So in my own case, yoga and meditation are 2 modalities I use every single day. And you might wonder, 1 minute? What good is that? Where is that going to get you? But the reason I adopted this as a daily habit is at one point in time when I learned these traditions, I had a commitment to spend an hour a day with these practices, and that commitment lasted 3 days before my life took over. But when I was struggling with it, a friend of mine at Google, Meng, when I talked to him, he said, Gopi, why don't you start with 1 breath? Because even if you're trying to do this for 1 full hour, you have to get past the first breath before you get to the second breath. And because I'm a compulsive, neurotic overachiever, I said, I can do better than that. I'm going to do a whole minute. And now when I made that commitment, there was not a single day when I could say, I don't have 60 seconds to commit to myself. So I started doing it. A week went by, 3 weeks went by, and for the first time in my life, I could look back and say with integrity that I honored what I committed to myself. But more importantly, on many days, I would sit for a whole minute, and before long, my mind would say, why are you getting up and rushing off to do something else when this is so sweet and grounding? So I was able to go from 1 minute to the 2nd minute and the 5th minute. So my ask for you here as a daily habit is find the lowest possible threshold so that you can make a commitment to something that nurtures your inner net, so that then you can show up in the outer world as a high-functioning person. The second habit that I adopted that I may urge you to consider is once a week at least block off an hour to again take care of your inner net using whatever tradition that makes sense to you. So how many hours are there in a week? Think about that. This most important resource, a fixed quantity called time we have. It's 169 hours. And what I'm asking you to do is to block out one of those 169 hours in your calendar on a fixed day of the week, fixed time, and make it non-negotiable. Because the rest of your calendar may get hijacked by other commitments, by other people who have access to it, but hold on to 1 hour as your sacred hour. So in my own case, every Monday at 5:30 is my commitment when I lead a yoga practice on the Google campus, a program I started 11 years ago when I joined. It's for the Googlers. It's called Yoglers. And every Monday at 5:30, you always find me there leading the class for the rest of the community. And for 11 years, I've never missed a single class, because that is my non-negotiable commitment that I want to honor every single week. So I'm asking you to find 1 hour in your week that's a fixed day, fixed time, when you will nurture your inner technology using whatever tradition makes sense to you, and make sure you hold on to it and have integrity towards it. The last ritual I'm going to encourage you to have is, how many of you use social media pretty regularly? Some connection, right? So anybody I see about 60, 70% of the hands go up. So we all pride ourselves in the fact that we have this amazing friendship connections that we have established around the world, which is well and good. But in the midst of all this, the most important friendship we will ever have is the one with ourselves. The most important friendship you will ever have, which will stay with you for the rest of your life, is the one with yourself. So in this particular daily ritual, the idea is to pause for a few seconds and check in so that you listen to the tweet from your heartbeat, so that you listen to the chat request from your brain, or the status update from your body because your body is telling you something. And if you pay attention to these signals, we respond better, and if you ignore it, it creates problems down the line. So in wrapping up this basic principle I talked about, I want you to both reflect on the fact that we are hurtling towards the future with incredible technologies like this, and this is only the beginning that will be a part of our lives. But in the midst of all of this, each one of us has a responsibility to take care of this technology and put it in a state of peak performance. And both have to work simultaneously. The challenge I'm going to throw out with you as you leave this conference is to ask yourselves the question, what traditions will you incorporate into your life as tiny daily habits? What practices will you adopt to keep your inner technology in a state of peak performance so that you can use all of the outer technologies and be enormously successful in your life? Thank you, shukran.